This is a show where we'll take you through everything that was buzzing post-market hours yesterday and while we were fast asleep last night in India as well as globally. So let's kickstart the show then, Shreyansi, before we get stock specific, before we talk about what brokerages are flagging off for us this morning. Let's kickstart the show with what the handover is looking like globally. And well, US markets were shut yesterday, but what's been happening with US last week and what's up with Europe?
Well, absolutely. Good morning, Snehi. And it was a good month rather for the US markets when you look at it. Now, when you look at stock futures, though, what you're looking at is largely a muted move coming in, because when you look at stock futures, there's not much that is happening on that side. But when you look at the move that we've seen this month, stocks are on track to end May on a strong note after softer inflation data earlier this month and better than expected quarterly earnings reports also lifted sentiment and suggested that rate cuts could come earlier than investors had anticipated. Recently, however, stronger economic data and fresher concerns about a potential consumer spending pullback have dampened the interest rate outlook, so that is something that the market is looking at. Of course, the US markets were shut for the Memorial Day holiday, but let's take a look at what happened in the month gone by. This month, the S&P 500 has advanced 5.3%. When you look at the Nasdaq as well, that has rallied about 8% after ending last week at a fresh record high. And the Dow Jones as well is up 3.3% meanwhile, and also topped that 40,000 mark for the first time ever this month. So that largely is the move coming in. Now, looking ahead to this week, investors are also watching out for consumer confidence data out on Tuesday, as well as the April personal income and expenditures report, which includes the PCE inflation reading as well. That is out on Friday as well, US time, and several companies are also on deck to report earnings results, with names like Costco, Wholesale and Ulta Beauty are also expected to give more clarity on the state of the consumer as well. So that largely is the handover coming in from the US. When you look at Europe, then European markets closed slightly higher as traders search for a direction on a quiet day for markets. So not much happening for Europe as well. When I'm looking at DAX, there was a 0.4% gain coming in, and largely a muted handover when you look at Europe as well. But on a monthly basis, though, you're looking at some strength come in for the US indices, Snehi.
Alright, well, US indices looking good, but with that, let's also take a look at what's happening with the world of oil. And oil prices were in a holding pattern in early Asian trading last morning as markets awaited an OPEC Plus meeting on the 2nd of June, where producers are expected to discuss maintaining voluntary output cuts for the rest of the year. On the back of this, let's take a look at what's been happening with oil. And Brent was rather flat coming in yesterday, but we did see a spike in WTI oil that spiked up by 1.3%, closing at $78.7 a barrel. Brent was rather flat but with a slight positive bias, closing at $83.1 per barrel. So that's where WTI and Brent are at the moment. Now, at the OPEC Plus meeting, the producers will discuss whether to extend voluntary output cuts of 2.2 million barrels per day into the second half of the year as well, with three sources from OPEC Plus saying countries are likely to go ahead and extend this, combined with another 3.66 million barrels per day of production cuts valid through the end of the year. The output cuts are equivalent to nearly 6% of the global oil demand. Now, OPEC has said that it expects another year of relatively strong oil demand growth of 2.25 million barrels per day, while the International Energy Agency, which is the IEA, expects much slower growth of 1.2 million barrels per day. So there's a slight parity when it comes to that front. Markets will also be watching the US Personal Consumption Expenditures Index this week for more signals about interest rate policy. The index that's due to be released on the 31st of May is reportedly the US Fed Reserve's preferred measure of inflation. Now, Brent ended last week about 2% lower. WTI has lost nearly 3% in the week after minutes from the Federal Reserve's meeting showed some officials would be willing to tighten interest rates further if they believed it was not necessary to control persistent inflation. The prospect of higher for longer interest rates has strengthened the US dollar, making oil more expensive for holders of other currencies as well. So that's the lowdown on all has been happening in the world of oil, but let's shift focus quickly and talk about what's happening with gold, right? Because gold prices yesterday drifted higher from a 2-week low hit in the previous session as traders gauge fading hopes of US interest rate cuts ahead of a key inflation report later this week. On the back of that, you have gold that has spiked up by almost 0.8%. Good move coming over there. Spot gold ending the day at 2,352.4 per 10 grams. So, well, that's all that's been happening in the world of commodities, namely oil.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now. If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.